In this part of the course, we're going to talk about Lambda functions, and Lambda functions get their own section because they're just that powerful and because they also have some unusual characteristics that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to make this package, what was it, Kotlin samples.lambdas, and let's have a main function here. Now, what I'm going to start with is an example of how you actually make a lambda. So lambda expression looks something like this. Let's suppose we're going to have a simple lambda expression for multiplying two numbers. So you can define it like this. For example, you can say val product, and this is a lambda function. So lambdas are typically defined inside curly braces, and everything about the lambda is inside the curly braces, not just the body of the function, but also the arguments as well. So the arguments here, they could be ints, like we could take an x and a y, which are both ints, and we could return simply x times y. All right, so as you can see, once I clear out the obvious errors here, what we're essentially saying is that we're making a function right inside the main function. We're making this variable, which is a function literal, which takes two values x and y and returns x times y. Notice that there are a few peculiarities. For example, there is no return statement here because here for a single expression, the end result is just obvious. There is, however, a different way of formulating that same lambda. This is done by having the types. You can see the types here on the right hand side. We can have them on the left hand side instead, and the way this is done is like so. We can say val product, and then we specify the type of the lambda right here. So the lambda is something which takes two ints. So we have int comma int. Notice the round brackets here. Then we have the arrow, and we have another int. So this definition here is essentially a function signature. That's what a function would be like. So it takes two ints, it returns an int. By the way, if your function returns void, then you would put a unit in here, but we're returning an int. Okay, so now on the right hand side, you put an equals, and you can define that same function, that same lambda function, but now you no longer have to decorate the types, meaning that you can write it like this. You can write x comma y goes to x times y. Same result, absolutely. And let's actually try this out. So let's print line 2 times 3 equals, and then product, that's the name of our lambda function, 2 and 3. And let's run this. All right, so 2 times 3 equals 6. Hope you remember your math. Now, let's take a look at a few more examples of where you would pass a lambda as an argument to some function. So for example, let's say I have a couple of numbers. So let's say I have a list of numbers with just a few numbers here. And then what I want to do is I want to count all the values which are greater than 3. So I want it to tell me how many out of the elements in the list are greater than 3. So how would I do it? Well, one way to do it is like this. I would say val n equals numbers dot count, and count is a library function in Kotlin. You'll notice that it has curly braces here. So there is a hint that you are feeding it a lambda. But it's a function, so you can call it with round brackets. And here you have to specify a predicate, which, as you can see, is a function which takes an int and returns a boolean. So we can define it like so. We can, for example, say that x goes to x greater than 3. And this will work just fine. Let's just try it out. So I'm going to print line. Let's just print line the end. I'm going to be lazy in this particular instance. Okay, so there are just two numbers which are greater than 3. That would be the 7 and the 4. But we can actually simplify this expression quite a bit. First of all, one of Kotlin's notations is that if your function takes just a lambda and nothing else, what you can do is you can omit the round brackets if you're going to have curly brackets inside them. It seems like Kotlin is happy with just one set of delimiters, so you can get rid of the round brackets and leave just the curly brackets. So this is good, but there is another thing that you can do. In the case where your function takes just a single value, Kotlin actually has a special name for it. So in this case, we're feeding a lambda which takes just a single parameter, and Kotlin calls this parameter it. And the great thing about this parameter is it's implicit, so you no longer have to give your input parameters actual names. So you can get rid of this part completely. And instead of writing x is greater than 3, you can write it is greater than 3. So this is a major simplification of the way that you would actually use the lambdas. Now, one thing I wanted to mention with regards to lambdas is, of course, closures. Essentially, what you can do is you can do things like this. For example, let's say we have a sum variable here inside function main. What you can then do is you can write something like numbers dot for each, and this also takes a lambda. So within this lambda, we can increase the sum variable by the variable that we're iterating. Notice I'm using the it again, and here we can print line, for example, the sum of numbers is $sum. So what's essentially happening here is the lambda is actually capturing the variable sum. So when you manipulate this variable inside the lambda, it does actually affect the variable that's outside. And the same goes, of course, for your nested functions, for example. Same idea. You're capturing the outside environment and you can manipulate it as well. So let's actually run this. And here is the result. The sum of 7, 1, 3, and 4 is indeed 15.